I like swearing, and you probably like swearing too, even though you probably won't admit to it. I also find that it's actually quite good for you. But don't just take my word for it, of course. There have been other studies, people have done some studying, and they found that, well, psychologically, swearing is actually quite good for you. It's also quite a good pain reliever. People who put their hands in a bucket of ice were able to hold them in there much longer if they swore their way through it. Consequently, by the way, if you swear too much, that gets rid of the effect. People who swear too much, they were able to put their hands in the bucket for just about the same amount of time as if they weren't swearing. So you can have too much of a good thing. There are, of course, situations where swearing is somewhat frowned upon, though, and I mean, like in front of your gran, depending on who your gran is, of course. I mean, she might be sort of interesting. Or you might be at work where you can't guarantee the people around you and their sensibilities, etc. So it's not called banter when it's that. Banter, of course, is a two-way thing. Anyway, I'm waffling a little bit right now. Here are some words which you can use which are insulting but are not swearing, and you don't need to resort to that effing and jeffing. Right at the top of this video, I need to get out of the way that there will be no minced oaths in this particular video. I've done minced oaths before. I might, if I can be bothered, stick a link to it above my head. It's usually like here, or is it here? Who knows? Who can say? There will be no minced oaths in this video. Minced oaths being words which are slight variations on swear words to make them more palatable. So cheese and crackers instead of saying Jesus the Christ's name, or saying blinking instead of something else, or flipping instead of something. You get the. So our first one is mutton shunter, which is very, very amusing to use, isn't it? You mutton shunter. Now, mutton shunter is, of course, an insult, but I also quite like the idea of using it if you've hurt yourself, either physically or existentially. I mean, you might use it if you stub your toe, which is that cliched example. But you might also use it the next day when you're doing the washing up, and all of a sudden you remember that thing that you said last night after about the 8th beer, and you think, that was the stupidest thing that anyone has really ever said in the history of the universe. The etymology of mutton shunter is quite, well, it's quite clear actually. It refers to a policeman, and I'd imagine that you probably shouldn't call a policeman really anything insulting if you possibly can, but it does refer, however, to mainly to the sex workers. The sex workers. I don't know why I felt I needed to repeat that. It does refer to, so basically an old way of referring to people who were selling their wares on the streets was to say that they were mutton dressed as lamb, which is another way that was a horrible way that we refer to women who are perhaps dressed a little bit younger than perhaps maybe they should be. I don't know, dress how you want maybe, probably do that. Either way, a big part of the police's job is, of course, moving sex workers around, not for their own profit, I'd hope, but, you know, so that they're not, I don't know, in public view of people who have sensibilities and things. So, hence the phrase, mutton shunters. Now, that's quite an unpleasant etymology, really, isn't it? I mean, it's sort of, you can't really call someone a mutton shunter without sort of thinking of those sex workers, which, you know, they're generally vulnerable people who have no other choice. I'm not really sure where I'm going with this point. It's a hugely complicated thing, and I'm not qualified to talk about it, and that's my shower that you can hear in the background. It is, however, hugely fun to say, so let's try and make an amendment to the meaning, shall we? Here's my suggestion. I would suggest calling people who shunt old ideas and dress them up as new ideas, and then try to make them look like they've done something good, call them mutton shunters. You know what I mean? You could also quite happily level the term codswallop at some of those people as well. But what is codswallop? Might say someone who's talking bollocks or chatting breeze, or maybe BS or balls, or maybe just outright lying is talking codswallop. The etymology of codswallop is very unclear, and there are a couple of theories out there, one of which involves a patented bottle top and a slang word for beer, but that one is probably codswallop. It's more likely a nonsense phrase which was coined by Richard Garter in 1958. He was a sketch artist and may or may not have caught the eye of the sketch writers of Hancock's Half Hour, which was a programme about a man called Hancock, and it was half an hour long. Anyway, it was popularised by Hancock's Half Hour in '59. That one came to me via a client who's American and... Sorry, no, that's a terrible thing to say. She was Canadian. I mean, she was American in the sense that she was from the continent of America, which I guess is really the correct way to say it. But of course, you know what I'm saying. This Canadian client of mine, she was amazed by the words codswallop and really couldn't work out what it was or where it was from. So I've done that for you if you're watching. I can't remember what your name was, and you probably can't remember. In fact, you're never going to watch this video, so I don't. Anyway, that's a rather quaint one, isn't it? How about some Jewish japes with the word schmuck? I've always enjoyed the term schmuck, although I don't really use it myself because A, I'm not Jewish, and B, it doesn't really come out of my mouth properly. I feel like you sort of have to have that cultural background to really get the oomph behind it. Do you know what I mean? It's a bit like hearing your mum swear sometimes. You just think, well, you just don't do it enough. Like, you just don't have the oomph, or the chutzpah, as you might say in this particular context. Either way, I especially started enjoying this particular phrase when one particular explanation, that's a word I can say, came out, which was that the schmuck is the leftover skin after a circumcision. Now, after a bit of research, I've not been able to corroborate that. Is that a word? Corroborate? I've not been able to confirm that. However, I have found that schmuck is, of course, a word to refer to a penis. It's a vulgar term to refer to a penis. Now, you might use that word in a vaguely similar way as to the way that I would probably use the word as a vaguely sort of C of E person as the word cock. A particular type of person is a cock, isn't it? They're just someone who's just done something just because they think it makes them look bigger or stronger or more cool, but it actually has just made them look like a fool. Now, even though my knowledge of the etymology of this word, not cock but schmuck, has changed, I still find it amusing to call people it, and although I do not condone circumcision in really any kind of sense unless it's medically important, it's amusing and satisfying to call someone that with the knowledge that they are the leftovers. I'll tell you what's not satisfying though, and that's someone who can't articulate themselves properly. You might call someone like that a nincompoop. The etymology of nincompoop is actually quite unclear, and it appears to go back to, or some theories say that it's because it sort of sounds like non compos mentis, or actually apparently it also sounds like the word Nicholas in French, which is Nicodemus, which apparently in French, if you call someone that, you're calling them a fool. I don't know. If you're French and you can confirm that, then please let me know. Personally, I'd say that both of those probably don't sound like the truth at all. They sound like things that people would make up to make themselves sound intelligent. Was that ironic? I think that was ironic. Either way, I can imagine that nincompoop was just plucked from the air after one too many wines or whatever other of their preferred beverage was of that particular evening, and it all made each other laugh so much that they just kept it, and then it spread through the culture. We've seen that before with lots of different things. That takes me to catlap, which is a old term for, well, a weak or a thin drink when one should really be on the booze. Now, there are obvious toxic behaviours associated with calling people out, depending on what kind of drink they've chosen. But if you're among friends and there is a level of banter, then maybe use it then. My friend Jamie used to, and probably still does, refer to people who are a bit weak, a bit thin, and I mean thin as in sort of there's not really much to them, I don't mean physically thin, as side salads. I.e. something that comes on the side of an expensive meal that you probably don't eat, the bit that doesn't really taste of anything. The catlap thing is probably something similar. Indeed, just like, why would you be drinking that? That's just catlap. It could only be possibly suitable for a domestic feline, which is what you would say if you were trying to explain it and you were being eloquent about it, which is... None of the recording of this video has gone like that. Now, of course, you'd be right by saying, I've just noticed that... There we go, that's better. Now, of course, you'd be right that both of those names seem to be there seems to be all sort of toxic behaviors which would be associated with both of those things, calling someone weak or, for whatever reason, maybe I'm tying myself in knots here, but let's just say that we called people side sellers when we were at university because they used to defend fervently their favourite boy wizard in a literature course. There's nothing wrong with that boy wizard. He has his time and his place, and I'm happy that people love him, but don't bring him up against, don't compare him to, say, I don't know, David Foster Wallace or, I don't know, Margaret Atwood, because it's neither of those things. It's okay to like a thing. It's okay to not like a thing. But, some of those things have a time and a place. Buffoon. Oh, buffoon, that's a good one, isn't it? Should we do that one? That one is from the Middle French, which itself is from Italian, which is a word which I've forgotten right now. I'm now going to have to look at again. Before, Buffare, which literally means to puff one's cheeks out. So you would say before. Before. Now that stupid dumb thing I was just doing just then was actually, I was trying to demonstrate to you what an echoic word is. So an echoic word is a word which echoes, it has the same sound as the meaning of the word. So the one I just did, which I'm not going to try and say again, is an echoic word. So when you call someone a buffoon, you're not only calling them a jester, you're also saying that they are the act of puffing one's cheeks out, which is, it's kind of amusing, right? What's your favourite one word where you say a swear but you don't do a swear? What's your favourite insult that involves not swearing at somebody? You must have a favourite one. Maybe to put it in the comments down below. Maybe you don't. Maybe just get on with your life. If you've got this far into the video, then thanks very much. You'll also find all of the sources for this video in the description below on YouTube, but you won't find it on Instagram. If you're watching this on Instagram, then I have an account on YouTube also called Puzzle Writer, which you should go and check out. And if you're watching this on YouTube, then go over to either Instagram or Facebook, and one day I might do something interesting. Imagine that. Take care.